Good day, everyone. For today's video, I want to tell you about the globalization of religion. But before that, let me introduce myself first. Hi, my name is Danila Jane Argusela. I'm 18 years old and I live in Barangay Onyo. So let's proceed to the globalization of religion. Globalization refers to the historical process through which all the people of the world are increasingly living in a single social unit. In several ways, it involves religion and religious. So, ang globalization ay ang pagtaas at pagpalitan ng mga services, trend, ekonomiya, and even the religion. Globalization calls for religious response and interpretation from a religious of theological point of view. In bringing about and characterizing globalization, religion and religious have also played important roles. One of the consequences of a religion of this implication was that globalization promotes religions pluralism, religion identify which with each other and due to diasporas and transnational ties, they become less rooted in particular places. Globalization also provides a ground for a variety of religious manifestations that are not institutionalized and for the development of religion as political and cultural resources. So, from religious to theological perspective, globalization calls for religion response and interpretation. The term globalization has very recent origins. It first appeared in a business and sociological literature of the 1980s. But by the end of the century, it had become a broadly involved expression in a both academic and popular discourse around the world. Globalization is by far the most widespread, referring primarily to more recent developments in the operation of global market capital and multinational. So, ang global kibali, amoy ni sidya ang isa ka proseso na isa ka country para matabangan ang pagpadako o pag-angat sa mga economies, cultures, and populations. Economics globalization focuses on how global capitalism incorporates the regions of the world into a single system. Kibali ang economics globalization nag-focus da sidya kung unhon pag-iban ang international sa mga baligya na ma-afford ng pinansyal o koordinasyon ng pagpalitan sanan ang economic sub nag-focus sidya kung unhon pagsama-sama ang kapitalismo ug ang religiyon ng mundo sa isang sistema. Another approach to globalization looks differently at this contrast between global and local, putting less emphasis on homogenizing economic and political institutions that impose themselves from above and more local on global movements, networks, and organizations that also help make the world more in one place, sometimes to the more hegemonic instance. So, ang global sub nag ang goal sub ng globalization na nag-provide sa mga organization na lower opportunity cost and to change gender number of product series concerns.
Some literature in this regard speak of the development of transnational civil society, in part to distinguish this kind of globalization from the economic and political kind. Also, kind of perspective emphasize the renewed importance of cultural differences under globalization conditions. Not only does the world become the same, it becomes more pluralistic. Religion appears as part of the process rather than as either an irrelevant bystander or victim, almost exclusively under this meaning of globalization. Ang ilang literatura sa bagay na ito ay nagsasalita ng pag-unlad ng isang transnational civil society sa bahagi upang makilala ang ganitong uri ng globalisasyon mula sa pang-ekonomiya at pampolitika na uri. Hindi lamang nagiging pareho ang mundo, nagiging mas pluralistic din ito. Various scholars have offered the interpretative theories of globalization. These theories often closely correspond to one of the term's dominant meanings. For example, one finds theories of global economic capitalist system or global political system of the state. However, several efforts aim to incorporate the different meanings as different aspects of single process, often placing the global and the local in a dialogical relationship rather than in opposition to each other. These approaches argue that local adaptation of globalized structures such as capitalism, nationalism, or mass media are constitutive of global. That globalization not properly understood if we only think of it as a sort of imperialist spread from one region to the rest of the world. Global factors are globalized by being localized or distinguished around the world, and thus the local becomes potentially global or universal. Among the many implications of such an outlook is what sometimes called world flow or worldwide flows from people, ideas, information, products, and other firms. Don't just go in one direction, say the rest of the world. From America and Europe, they also move the other way, or reverse flow, and beyond the powerful western regions or the cross flows. Ang iba't ibang scholar ay nag-alok ng interpretative na tumutugma sa isa sa mga terminong nangibabaw na kahulugan. Gayunpaman, ang ilang mga pagsisikap ay naglalayong isama ang iba't ibang mga kahulugan bilang iba't ibang mga aspeto ng isang proseso. Kadalasang inilalagay ang global at lokal sa isang dialogical na relasyon sa halip na salungat sa isa't isa.
Religion as cultural and political resource. People who migrate from one part of the world to another in search of better life often rely on their religion and religious institution to tackle a range of related issues. May mga tao na lumilipat ng mga tirahan at lugar para makahanap ng mas magandang buhay. Sometimes they rely on their religions or paniniwala or relihiyon sa kanilang kinabibilangan upang harapin ang isang hanay na related mga issue. In a situation where they may be stranger, religion can provide them with a strong sense of identity and integrity. Since religion has its own life practices and teachings, and that they provide that and through that they provide a strong sense of identity or knowing who you are as a person and has a value and worthy of attention. Globalization provides conditions for the development of new and expanded transnational institutions as primary reason for existence is religious, but which also serve a range of other purposes. Ang globalization, siya yung nagpro-provide ng mga development ng bago at ipalaganap ang mga transnational na transnational na organization, pero may mga layunin pa sila aside from ipalaganap ng mga transnational mga institution. The role of religion in providing, broadly speaking, cultural resource in a global context is not limited to the situation of migrants. However, the globalization, irrespective of which meaning one favor, implies a kind of compression of space in which the upheaval and uprooting characteristic of migratory experience is a great many of the world's people, whether they leave their homes or not. Ang tungkulin ng relihiyon, hindi lamang sa cultural resources in global context, hindi naglilimitado sa sitwasyon ng mga migrants or mga tao na lumilipat-lipat ng mga tirahan o lugar. Gayunpaman, ang globalisasyon hindi isinalang-alang kung saan ang ibig sabihin ng isang pabor. Nagpapahiwatig ito ng isang katangian ng migratory ay marami sa mga tao sa mundo. Umalis man sila ng kanilang tahanan o hindi. One phenomenon that has attracted the greatest attention to the global significance of religions is the proliferation of effective regio-political movement in nearly all parts of the world. Isang pangyayari na nakaakit ng mga atensyon ay ang influence ng religion sa paglaganap ng epektibong regio-political movement na halos lahat ng bansa ay nasakop nito. From the rise of Hindu nationalism in India and the heavy political involvement of some Buddhist organizations in Japan to the many highly politicized Islamic movement in the countries as diverse as Iran, Indonesia, and Nigeria. Politicized religion has been a constant feature of the global world since at least in 1960s, and in many ways well back into the 19th. It is the fact that the religion has a heavy involvement in politics, just like in the Afghanistan where their laws are almost based on their religion, kung paano sila mamahala sa kanilang gobyerno at sa kanilang bansa.
Religion and religions as a globalizing system. When we talk about religion and religions as a globalizing system, is in that context, the globalization of religion can be understood as a process of realignment in this global religious system, a process which involves the following three facts. Another theoretical approach to the role of religion in globalization goes beyond the idea that religious worldviews and institutions have participated in the process. It focuses on the degree to which the manifestation of globalization are both modern institutional forms and modern understanding of religion with the centuries-long development of what is now a globally expanded religious system consisting primarily of series of mutually identified and widely recognized religions. These regions include Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism, and virtually every region of the globe, but the variable list of other religion reviews nearly as a wave legitimacy. Among these are Judaism, Sikhism, Taoism, and Jainism, followed again by other set of lists constantly or more regionally accepted one like Baha'i, Shinto, Candomblé, African tradition, religion, Scientology, etc. When we say a theoretical tradition, ay ang theoretical na diskarte sa papel na relihiyon at relihiyon sa globalisasyon ay higit pa sa idea na ang relihiyosong pananaw sa mundo ay lumahok sa pang-prosesong institusyon. Nakatuon ito sa antas kung saan ang pagpakita ng globalisasyon ay pare-parehong makabagong pananaw na mula sa pag-unawa sa relihiyon. Sa pag-unlad ng kung ano ngayon kasama sa relihiyon ang Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism. Sa halos ng relihiyon ng mundo, pare-pareho umas tinatanggap sa relihiyon ang mga tulad ng Baha'i, Shinto, Candomblé, ang mga tradisyonal na relihiyon sa Afrika. The construction of the religion system is not just recent, for this approach to religion and globalization is quite selective as will not every possible religion counts, not everything that might be religious both accept and symptomatic of ongoing the recent discussion among religious scholars on the meaning of the concept and supposed Eurocentrism. A strict corollary of this theory, a consequences of the selective nature of this religious system is that new religions will continuously try to form in that most religiously will escape the system. Therefore, the existence of this global religious system, both globally and locally, is found. Kibali, ang construction of the religion system is not just recent for the approach to religion and globalization. Mahigpit na bunga ng teoryang ito sa isang bunga ng piling katangian ng sistemang pangrelihiyon na ito ay ang bagong relihiyon na patuloy na susubukan na mula sa maraming relihiyon ang tatakas sa sistema. Sa makatuwid, ang pag-iral ng pandaigdigang sistema ng relihiyon kapwa sa buong mundo at lokal. Patuloy na pag-unlad at ang hamon ng bagong nagpapatakbo ng ideyang lohitikal na humahantong sa pagsasaalang-alang ng mundo.
Religion, globalization, and human condition. More than a few globalization theories explicitly address what might be called its ideal dimension, how it shapes people's understanding of the world's nature and purpose and its place in it. Since such issues of ultimate concern or purpose often appear to define the characteristic of religion, this ideal dimension can also be conceived as its religious dimension, although not necessarily referring to the role of religious traditions and institutions within it. There are still some who see globalization as inevitably moving the world towards a future of ever increasing material prosperity, political democracy, and equitably shared technological progress among all peoples. Far more numerous are those who share ideals such as equality and inclusion of all people. In the advantages of global society, perhaps under the rubric of universal human rights, but they consider that at least human society has a long way to go before they can realize and that certain characteristics of globalization actually stand in the way of their realization. Several perspectives based on institutionalized religion fall under this heading. For example, the Global Ethics Project already discussed, or by Hans Kang, or the World Council of Church, Justice, Peace, and Integrity of Creation program. These and other examples typically consider values such as people's religions, classes, and gender, equality to be entirely unquestionable. The social scientific approaches that emphasize the global preponderance of idealized models, particularly models of progressive economy, nation-state, education, legal structures, mass, media, art, and culture also belong in this category. Unitary but negative vision share most of these factors but reject the idea that any of these developments can have a positive result. Ironically, it may not be uncommon for this vision to embrace precisely the kind of egalitarian values typically of the positive versions, but to insist that this is possible only in a separate and usually quite small society. Higit sa ilang mga teorya ng globalisasyon, ang tahasang tumugon sa kung ano ang tinatawag ng mga ideal na sukat nito. Paano nito hinuhubog ang pag-unawa ng mga tao sa kalikasan at layunin ng mundo, at ito ay inilagay dito dahil ang ganitong mga isyu ng sukdulang lumilitaw upang tukuyin ang mga katangian ng relihiyon na ito. Ideal ang mga dimension ang maaari ding isipin bilang reliyosong dimensyon nito, bagamat hindi
Kinakailangang tumukoy sa papel na ginagampanan ng mga tradisyon at institusyong pangreliyon sa loob nito. Maaari hatiin ang mga pagsusuri ng dimension ito ay tinitingnan na positibo o negatibong katangian at kung ang pagkakaisa o pagkakaiba iba ng pananaw ang mamayani.
On the other hand, there are those rejection of unitary globalization that insist on a particular culture or society unique validity. Some so-called fundamentalist views fall into this category, but how relatively are they are mostly strict.